Hello! So, this is our long unit for Crime and Punishment, and I'm really excited about it because I think for me, this is one of the more impactful books I've ever read. I read it when I was a bit older than you. I was already in college, but I think it can absolutely be done when you're younger. It's just that it requires a dedication to some pretty deep psychological and philosophical tenets. So, I'll guide you through it and we'll take it slow. We're going to spend 5 weeks on this book, and we'll pause to make sure that the basic concepts of the philosophy are settling in with you. I'm also cognizant, rather, of the fact that it's a challenging book for its character and its Russian language. So I'm going to give you some tips for how to navigate that world as we move through the unit. All right, so administratively first, I'd like you to start a new big Google Doc, please. This will help us really with the loading of our documents because already your documents are 40 pages, maybe long. So I know that makes Google load really slowly. We're going to start a new document that represents 2022, and we will begin it with week 1, Crime and Punishment, part 1. All right. So the first step is which book to get. I'm not going to belabor this because I think probably a lot of you already have your books. But if you don't, there are different translations available. So you can look at this slide and check out the website for which one you might want to get. Personally, I have the Sydney Mornis translation. That's fine. If you have another, it's really not a big deal. I'll be using the parts to explain which one we're going to be reading at any given time. And I'm going to cite my quotes just saying part 1, chapter 4, so that you will be able to figure out what I'm talking about no matter what translation of Crime and Punishment you have. There is a really interesting conversation to be had about translations. We're just not going to have it right now in this unit. And I encourage you, as you move on in your education, to take a literary translation class where you can really delve into those concepts. So here's our schedule of reading. We'll read one part a week for the most part, except you'll find the 4th week we're going to combine parts 4 and 5 so that we can do part 6 and the epilogue in the 5th week. Parts 4 and 5 are the shortest. Part 1. For me, that gets us to page 87, so probably about the same for you, 80 to 90 pages of reading. Our focus will be on character. We are going to spend a lot of time in this unit thinking about evidence. So we've explored the concepts of claims, how to make a good claim that's not plot-based. We have thought about integrating quotes. We've thought about how to structure an argument, though we'll always come back to these things. I want us to spend time thinking about evidence and specificity of evidence that we use to construct argument. We are also going to practice on-demand writing, so we're going to begin timing your writes, your Wednesday organization writes. And that means we'll time your essays as well. So I'll get into that a little bit on our organization day. All right, the book. I don't want to give too much away at the beginning, but I do want to give you some tips for navigating the world of St. Petersburg that Raskolnikov is moving through. Here's a map of the important parts of the book that we're going to encounter. I know for me, spatial awareness really helps when I'm trying to build my understanding of the book. St. Petersburg is tucked a little bit inland off the Baltic Sea, in Russia, of course. And this is a map of how it sits there on the bay that leads to the sea. Raskolnikov lives, if you can follow the colors here, right at the intersection of the red and the purple lines. That's his shabby little apartment. The murder, which you'll read about immediately, is here at that red arrow. So he walks to get to this place. Over here, there's a dream sequence, and that's depicting where he goes to have that dream. His friend that he's going to visit lives on this island, so you'll hear references to the island as well. So here's the world of the book. This is where we are. Most of what we do in this book is travel with Raskolnikov in this small section of St. Petersburg, back and forth through these streets. The reader in St. Petersburg who is familiar with the city would not even need the names of the streets. So you might have a translation that says Raskolnikov moved to K Street. You might have one that fills in the full name. But either way, there is an understanding that you have as a reader of intimate knowledge of this city. This is really about St. Petersburg. I got this map, by the way, from the Journal of the International Dostoevsky Society. There's lots of other good resources like that. One of the benefits of teaching a classic book like this is you will have endless resources for making your way through the thicket of the text. Okay, next, support, a character map. I recommend as you read the book, find a map like this. You can even have this slide up or nearby after you finish your reading, because it helps to arrange the characters in your mind. The Russian naming conventions, which might make a lot of sense to you if you have any background in a Slavic language, can be confusing to an English reader. Here is a little document that I've linked that explains the naming conventions of the more predominant characters in the text. And I'm just going to pause on those, that first one there and his sister too. So our main character, Raskolnikov, is also known as Rodion Romanovich Raskolnikov, and he has diminutives, which is just another fancy word for nickname, that they denote affection. So you'll see him called this by his mom, by his sister, by his friends, Rodia, Rodenka, or Rodka. It all is the same thing. It's like someone whose name is Catherine being known in a book alternately as Kate or Katie or Katrine, all of the diminutives that people assign to that person. It's just that they're more common in Russian and they happen for everybody. You're going to quickly meet in this story from Marmeladov, his daughter, Sonia. Well, her full name is Sophia. So you might sometimes see her referred to as Sophia, it might be Sonia, it might be Sumichka, which is a diminutive, like a pet name that he has for her. Anyway, it can get confusing. So I've linked the doc, and I do recommend, as you're trying to make your way through the book, have some visual, whether it's stick figures you're drawing on a bulletin board or my map I'm offering you, where you can make sure you're keeping in mind the different characters that move through the book. I think it starts kind of slow, which is nice. Mostly the character we know in the first part is Raskolnikov. There's a couple other characters, but not many, but they really start to pick up in the next part. All right, moving into the book. So remember, there will be an optional Zoom discussion about creative analysis this Friday, if you want to join 11 a.m. Eastern, and we will talk about your answers to this question I'm about to pose, but it's also an opportunity to just ask questions about the book in general. Our creative analysis question and task is going to focus on the complexity of Raskolnikov. He is the roundest character in literature, in my opinion, that I think I've ever met. I think that his evolution is fascinating. So we're going to begin our unit by thinking about him and the way that he is messy. Messy characters. So the first standard in AP Lit's curriculum, 1A, the very first one, is identify and describe specific textual details and what they reveal about a character, their perspective, their motives. Inconsistencies between the characters' motives and what they do, or in between their thoughts and what they do, reveal tensions, complexities between the private and professed values of that character. In the best characters, there's even tension in their private thoughts. They can't reckon something really important. Well, that is Raskolnikov. But that's also what makes characters believable, because that's us. We recognize inconsistencies in ourselves. We also recognize and seek them even in others. And perhaps they're overly quick to do so. In literature resides the safe space to judge characters for these inconsistencies and to realize how human they are, rather than attacking each other for inconsistencies. How could we? It's simply part of what makes us who we are. We can use these inconsistencies as a mirror then against ourselves. So there's the healing power of literature and the thinking power of reading. Because in exploring Raskolnikov and in trying to understand about his evolution, we might find that we do not know what he is going to do. Characters who do evolve, and he does, are said to be round. They are not static, they are not flat, they are round in that they are real. And who is the roundest character thus far in literature, in Crime and Punishment anyway? Raskolnikov. So, of course, this is our task. All right, the inconsistency of Raskolnikov. Lots of text on this slide. Raskolnikov contradicts himself, sometimes within his own thinking, and he has these long, muttered, sometimes silent monologues. And then sometimes the inconsistencies happen between what he thinks and what he does. The inconsistencies between his private thoughts and his actual behavior reveal tensions in his character. The italicized part there, that's straight from the AP Lit curriculum. 1E in the AP Lit curriculum asks you not only to identify those moments of tension, but to explain them. Explain how a character's own choices, actions, and speech reveal complexities in the character, and explain the function of those complexities. The character's competing or inconsistent choices contribute to the complexity and suspense in a text, which keeps you guessing what he might do. And so your task is to 1A, identify a moment of inconsistency, and then 1E, explain it. So far, in your estimation of his character, what is the function of that complexity for Raskolnikov? I want you to find just one inconsistency for today. I want you to find textual evidence that reveals an inconsistency in Raskolnikov. It should have at least 2 moments in it. So you might need to copy one part of the text and then jump forward a few pages and copy another part of the text. Because you can't have an inconsistency without at least 2 moments, right? And you can have more, but let's focus on two moments that reveal an inconsistency. All right. I want you to highlight the moments and then write a couple of sentences. What is going on? What do you notice there about the tension in his character? I have that written out, all of that written out right there in that last bullet point. I am really encouraging you to use that online text of crime and punishment just for these kinds of tasks because you don't have to type it all out. You can just copy it into your post. I'm way more interested in your annotations of that than you typing it out. You'll find that my model, which I'm about to show you, it happens to be on the same page. You don't have to do that, but I do think it's interesting. He contradicts himself immediately. All right, so here is my model. Long, right? This is the scene where you'll get into this when you read. He finds a girl who's drunk on the street, and he finds a policeman to take care of that girl. And he gives the policeman 20 kopecks, money, and says the most important thing is that you keep her out of this other scoundrel's hands. But then just a few lines later, he says to the policeman, well, what is it to you? Let him have her. Let him amuse himself. So in a short time, he tries to help, and then he immediately questions, why am I helping? Why should any of us help? Inconsistency. So in my explanation, I say, in the span of a short scene, Raskolnikov abandons his clear value that the most important thing, the chief thing, is to protect the drunk girl from a leering predator. He abandons that. It is not only that he changes his mind with additional details, he forsakes what moments earlier to him seemed the most important clear moral priority. This is what I'd like you to do, just like this. Copy a huge piece of text, or small if you can find a small inconsistency that's worth our study, highlight it, somehow denote the 2 things that most disagree with each other, and then write for me just a couple of sentences on what you notice in his inconsistent thought or in his inconsistent thought versus behavior. And that is the creative analysis assignment for today.